Hello, good morning.
Hello. Hi, Melissa.
Hi, how are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
All good. I'm really glad we were able to create this project together for today. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here and hopefully spread some awareness on PMDD.
Perfect. Okay, so I wanted to start by asking you to introduce yourself. We are El Paso Project Period, and we're making a collaboration with Tabitha Cantú. Can you please tell us more about a little bit of what you do, what your goals are here in El Paso, how you want to engage with the community?
Yes, thank you for introducing me. So, like Melissa said, my name is Tabitha Cantú, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker serving women and teen girls ages 13 and up in the states of Texas, New Mexico, and Florida, because I have lived in all those states. I have worked in a diverse background, diverse communities. I've worked from everything from individual therapy, case management, school counseling, family services, and I'm excited to work here in my community and work with the people here. And my background is Hispanic, so I'm excited to be back like to my roots.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. I actually wanted to start by getting into this conversation on how menstrual health and mental health relate to each other. I know previously we discussed about menstrual dysphoric disorder. Can you tell us a little bit of what it is and how does it look like? How is it different from regular PMS?
Yes, our topic of today is premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which I think not a lot of people really know about, and women and teen girls as well. So it can often mimic the symptoms of PMS, but it's more severe and disabling. It can have both like the physical and emotional symptoms of PMS, but it causes more extreme mood shifts. So it's categorized more as like a medical and like a mood disorder.
Okay. So instead of it being so much of the physical symptoms that we usually get from PMS, which we shouldn't even dismiss as normal either.
Mhm.
But this goes more into the route of what you can find on the DMS-5, for example.
Correct. So PMDD, it can be hard to diagnose because it can mimic a lot of other diagnoses. It can mimic anxiety, it can mimic depression, ADHD, borderline. And people who usually have PMD may probably already have some underlying anxiety or depression, but it can cause that like sadness, hopelessness, anxiety, extreme moodiness, irritability, and it kind of just impacts like more of your day-to-day life. There's more of a brain fog and difficulty focusing.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so it's more, like we mentioned, it's leaning more towards the mental health and if how would it affect, you mentioned it affects day-to-day life. How would it affect your relationships or your school or work, stuff like that? How would you, how would a day look like living with PMDD?
So with PMDD, usually you're going to see symptoms occur 1 to 2 weeks before your period. And usually once you get your cycle, those symptoms should alleviate. So it's good to keep that in mind. But it can affect missed like absences at work or school. It can be difficult to focus on like big projects or exams, testing. It can affect your relationships. You tend to isolate a bit more, and it can also cause suicidal thoughts. It's not always, but it can. And so that can definitely lead to like unmotivation and isolation and loss of motivation and self-worth.
Okay. It is also relevant to notice that you mentioned suicidal thoughts, and I want to share with the community that if you're ever experiencing suicidal thoughts or ideation, it's really important to call 988, the suicide hotline. It's very important to just keep that in mind, and I will share that on the description for this video.
Yes, that's so important to bring up. That is a great resource. Call 988, call 911, call a loved one, a trusted one, but never sit alone with these thoughts. And it's important to remember that they are temporary. It should only be within that 2 weeks and then they should alleviate. So it's important to really know your cycle, and teach our young women what that looks like from an early age. Because I know I spoke to a pediatrician, and young girls are getting their periods now, starting at the age of 7. So it's really important to start having those early conversations.
Yes, definitely. Because it's something that we also like to provide as part of El Paso Project Period is just this opportunity to engage in conversation, how to approach these topics for it to be age appropriate. Because as you mentioned, every time, every year we see this decrease in the age for when young women start their periods. So it's really important to also focus on how to discuss this and how to build that trust, that trusting relationship with your parents on and with your kids on how to have these conversations. So that is
Mm.
something that we also provide. So I wanted to share that as well. And I also wanted to ask you, you mentioned it impacts, and in my PMDD specifically, it impacts other mental health challenges, and that it might look like anxiety, depression, or borderline personality disorder, stuff like this. Will it be accompanied by it? You mentioned it looks like it, but it only lasts throughout your cycle. It should be. So, will that impact or would that affect other mental health challenges or issues?
No, yeah. So I just want to correct myself because I said borderline, but it's actually bipolar because
Okay.
that confuses me. So I'm sorry. I just want to clear
No,
that
that's
up.
completely fine.
But yes, so it can mimic a lot of things, a lot of diagnoses. And so unfortunately for women and young girls, it can be really hard to get diagnosed with PMDD because it mimics other symptoms. And often, um, because we already don't feel good when we're PMSing or on our periods, usually we're kind of like gaslight or dismiss those feelings, right? We're like, oh, it's just like really bad PMS, oh, it's just so it's important to really validate those feelings. So it can, as far as anxiety goes, right? PMDD can like amplify or trigger like spikes in tension, panic attacks, or just constantly feeling on edge, which are symptoms of anxiety. And then with major depression, we have feeling that hopelessness, that sadness, maybe those suicidal thoughts. There's a drop in estrogen and progesterone, so it reduces like that energy and that focus and that motivation. And then with bipolar, we have those severe mood swings and like possibly manic episodes, which is like a severe elevation of mood or like downs as well. So sometimes it can mimic those, right? Because in bipolar, those episodes only come so often. And so because it's the same, it kind of mimics PMDD where we get those symptoms once a month. There can be a lot of like medical gaslighting in that because, or even just like family, because nobody really knows about it and that's okay. But yeah, it can mimic a lot of different things and it can be hard to diagnose, which is why it's so important to start tracking at least 2 of your cycles to see what symptoms you're showing.
Okay, perfect. So, based on that, would it be useful to keep track with a calendar, for example, like a mood calendar that we usually do in our journal, something that looks cute, but it's actually very helpful when you want to get a diagnosis? Will that work?
Absolutely. I know some people feel some type of way about like putting their information online, which is okay. So having like a physical journal or an app, something where you can just track it. And it can be hard in the beginning, but once you kind of make it a habit, you'll already just know when that cycle is coming. You'll know your symptoms are changing. So it's good to like keep these symptoms in mind, right? So, like, even with ADHD, right, there's that fog, there's that difficulty concentrating, there's that trouble with like executive functioning and feeling kind of just paralyzed. So, it's good to track these symptoms monthly, physically and mentally.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that.
Mhm.
Um, How would one get a diagnosis? How does it look like to get a diagnosis? Would one need to attend a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a gynecologist? Because it's something that impacts your cycle. It impacts your mental health. And like you mentioned, it impacts as well a lot of your hormones and changes your mood. So who would I need to look for? What kind of doctor, per se, would I need to attend to get a diagnosis on something like this? And is there any treatment for something like this?
Well, all the resources you just mentioned are really great. All of those are important. It's important to have maybe some talk therapy and a medical provider. So, like you said, oncologist, gynecologist, um, a primary, if that's what you can do, but someone to definitely track those symptoms because not track them. Um, help you with those symptoms because there's a lot of treatments out there as well. And I know there's medication if you're able to, and that's appropriate. Sometimes like an SSRI could help with that mood stabilization or birth control. Definitely some talk therapy when that's coming up. And it's important to like bring this conversation to your support system so they can also be aware of your cycle, right? Whether that's your partner, whether that's your friend, whether that's your parents, but someone to also kind of help you track that because your loved ones are also going to feel what's going on in that one to
Mhm.
2 month, right? Because our moods affect each other. So it's also going to be something that they need to be aware of. Like we don't want to plan family vacations or anything like that when that's going on. And so, yeah, there's a lot of different treatments. There is a website that I will send you. I think it's like the PMDD project, and they have some good resources there as well.
Perfect. It will be amazing to share that with the community. I will add that to the description as well. Thank you.
Mhm.
On that note, you mentioned that your family members, your friends, your significant other, they are gonna experience these changes with you every single month because we spend time with the people we love most.
Mhm.
But if we are struggling mentally, physically, how can friends and family support us? Like, let's suppose someone has a PMDD diagnosis, they're struggling, or they don't have a diagnosis yet, but you have that idea that okay, maybe something's not wrong, I need to get care, but I'm still living with these symptoms. How can family members and friends support someone with PMDD?
So we want to validate their experience, right? It's not just bad PMS, but to know that there's those like hormonal shifts going on, right? It's affecting our serotonin levels. If we're feeling down, um, those neurotransmitters are going to change. I think what we mentioned earlier is tracking that cycle together. You can keep a shared calendar and just knowing to plan like low key activities or things when that's going on. Um, I think if you can have extra support, like there's that brain fog and unmotivation. So, like cooking somebody a meal or maybe helping them around the house or um, just asking them what they need, right? Making sure you're eating some good balanced meals and what your body needs. Um, Again, working with some kind of medical provider, um, getting those treatment options such as medication, and just finding people that are on your side and knowing that also boundaries play into it as well, because it's not only just about the person that's struggling, but the people also taking care of you. So it's also good to know when to take a break and how to get support if you're taking care of someone with PMDD. But there's a couple of different symptoms when it comes to it. So I think when they diagnose you, they'll go through all the symptoms with you. I think there's also like 5 of the 11 that you need to have in order to be diagnosed. So that can be the symptoms we talked about earlier, which is like mood swings, irritability, depression, anxiety, and things like that.
Okay. So in that case, how do you think having this stigma or misinformation surrounding not only PMDD, which a lot of people don't even know about, but just PMS? There's a lot of misinformation out there on how to get through your period and how to um, support someone with these symptoms. How do the stigma and misinformation might affect people with PMDD, not only PMS, but PMDD?
So it can cause that like misdiagnosis and medical gaslighting because it mimics different symptoms. There could be a dismissal of symptoms and feeling misunderstood by people, by family, by the medical provider. Like it can feel very isolating when you don't know what's going on and why it feels so severe and why you're having trouble, maybe getting along with your loved ones and you just like don't feel like yourself. So there can be a lot of incorrect labels and validating. Um, Again, it can mimic like ADHD, depression, and delayed help. It can take a while to get a diagnosis of PMDD, which is why I'm glad we're talking about it to bring awareness because there can be a lot of delay in getting that diagnosis, especially as a young child, because most children nowadays are diagnosed with ADHD. So it can be hard to look at that. So it's really good to like monitor symptoms 1 to 2 weeks before your period, um, and kind of start that process elimination of like what's going on with my body. Is it PMDD?
Okay, and also really relevant to not try to diagnose oneself. This is something a certified individual should be looking into, and sometimes it might be difficult or even intimidating to seek help, but it's very important to have someone that knows what they're talking about and they can help you out, figure out what's going on in your life, and just trying to discuss objectively what's going on.
Absolutely. It's good to have awareness. And if you do feel like you're struggling, do find, a medical provider or a therapist, somebody that can help you go through these symptoms.
Definitely. I have one last question for you. I wanted to ask you, we mentioned family, friends, stigma, a little bit of how professionals might look into this as well. But how can other places in the community, like schools, workshops, or just community organizations, can do better to support people experiencing PMDD and everyone in the community? Really, a lot of our uh, community members menstruate. How can we provide support to the community?
As far as schools go, it's good to talk to your school counselor, your teachers, let them know, in confidence and privacy that you're struggling with these things. It's good to know that 1 to 2 weeks before, maybe allowing students to take a temporary short-term, maybe medical leave, or maybe adjusting your assignment deadlines during those peak symptoms, or exam adjustments. Maybe there's a hybrid schedule that you can do. Because if you have those exams on those days where you have that cognitive fog or severe anxiety, it's going to be really hard to focus. So I think also providing what we're doing now is early education on menstrual cycles and cycle tracking. So students can recognize what's going on with their bodies and minds.
Also, I wanted to share that in any case, people might need menstrual health products. That is a service that we provide. We provide them my first period kits, and it's something that we can share. Um, with the community, with schools, shelters, workplaces. This can be either under request or just sending us a DM on Instagram, a text message through WhatsApp. All of information is going to be over here, and I will also be adding your information to the description in case people feel like they want to keep talking about this topic. They might relate to some of the symptoms we mentioned throughout the workshop and just feel the need to seek help. Also, for workplaces specifically, do you think there might be something that organizations or workplaces in general can apply to support people with PMDD? Is there, you mentioned also to talk about this um, privately and with confidentiality. How can we approach that? How would it be okay? Would it be doable to request a letter of a diagnosis from a certified professional and just present this as proof, for example, of having PMDD and mentioning the symptoms and provide this information because, like we mentioned, not everybody knows about it and there's so much stigma around menstruation in general. Um, how can workplaces provide this support as well?
I am so glad that you brought that up and that your organization also offers those resources to people because not everyone has access to menstrual sanitary products. And it's so important to provide those for school because getting your cycles can be such a difficult time in your life and you don't really know what's going on. So as far as like the workplace goes, going back to that website I brought earlier, that PMDD project, they also offer like structured workshops. So I think like opening up that conversation in a workplace as well, not just in schools. Talking to your supervisor, if you can have a hybrid option, maybe working from home those days, maybe compressing your work weeks and adjusting those projects you have. Maybe 1 to 2 weeks before your period, you don't want to take on any new projects or try to finish any big ones. So making those workload adjustments. Um, Often like noise reduction, which goes for school and work. If we can have space for a private room, if we're testing, if we're working, so there's not a lot of distractions because there is that brain fog already. And maybe talking to like HR or a manager, and disclose that sensitive information, and avoiding that discrimination for yourself and for others, and knowing that this is something real that people struggle with and hopefully not carry shame around it.
Also, relevant and crucial and essential to mention that a lot of different workplaces, like you mentioned, visit the HR office. They can provide you with additional information on how to approach these topics with your manager or with the workplace in general, because they have in place a lot of different rules and protocols for non-discrimination, specifically for things like this, and for no retaliation as well. So it's very important that you feel comfortable that they should not be discriminating you for something like this at the workplace.
Absolutely. And something that you do in your organization and what other people can do as well is having that resource referral, right? Providing a local healthcare providers, therapists, um, endocrinologists, gynecologists, of where people can go, if they're needing help or if they're struggling with those severe suicidal thoughts, giving them that 988 or resource and letting them know that help is out there and they're not alone.
Definitely. Thank you so much. I wanted to ask you, is there any additional information you would like to provide the community? Anything that I did not cover from the questions we shared today? Anything else that you want to add?
No, I think all your questions were really great, and I hopefully we covered a lot of questions that people might have. Um, I think we covered a good amount of what PMDD can mimic, what it can mimic, right? Depression, anxiety, bipolar, what the treatment options are, how to get help, how to track your cycle. And again, it can just feel like a little hijack of your identity in those 1 to 2 weeks. So just validating and just getting people on your side and people you trust. But I think we covered a good amount.
I also wanted to mention that it can be very useful to get um, therapy sessions or counseling sessions specifically when you know you're going through those specific times. If you track your cycle, you can schedule something during your cycle with Tabitha, for example, on just, I want to talk about what's going on in my life. I'm not feeling well. I think I need care. If you start tracking that, it's way easier to tackle those issues and tackle those symptoms when you're dealing with them.
Absolutely. You mentioned earlier, do not diagnose yourself, but if you feel like these symptoms, like maybe you're struggling with them, you can absolutely start therapy with me, with somebody else who's going to work for you to help you track those symptoms and start that process of elimination of what's going on, why do I feel this way? And long-term therapy can be helpful because those symptoms can be, monthly until you find the right treatment and hopefully those symptoms will alleviate. But yeah, it can be helpful to have somebody to talk to while you're figuring it all out.
Definitely. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for all the information you provided today. And I really appreciate working with you and collaborating with you for this project and for all the benefits that we can provide for the community as well.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I was so excited to work with you. I'm so excited that El Paso has this because it's important, and women and teen girls struggle with a lot of things around their menstrual cycle, including needing those sanitary things. And so I'm so glad you're all here to work with the community.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, just to wrap this up, like I mentioned, thank you so much. And I hope to see you next time for another workshop.
Yes, I hope we get to work together soon. I think Melissa will put my information somewhere down below if anyone's seeking therapy or just curious about it. And then I will also send you that PMDD project website as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm gonna add that over here as well.
Thank you, Melissa.
Bye bye. Take care. Have a great
Bye.
day.
You too.